Welcome to Chamber Talk, brought to you by North Orange County Chamber, where we explore the stories and insights of leaders, business owners and CEOs from various sectors who are making a difference in our community and region. Whether you're tuning in via podcast or joining us via video, we're glad to have you here. I'm your host, Andrew Gregson, and today we have the privilege and honour of welcoming the California State Treasurer and also the 2026 Lieutenant Governor of California candidate, Fiona Ma. Thank you, Fiona, for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew.
So one of the things I suppose we want to start off with is, can you share a little bit about your background and what sort of inspired you to first enter public service?
Yes. So I never aspired to be a politician. I am the oldest daughter of immigrant parents. Coming to the United States, they wanted us to be a lawyer, engineer, accountant, or doctor, one of the lead professions. So I was good at math, so my father trained me to be an accountant. My brother is an engineer like my father. My sister is a chiropractor, so doctor.
Wow.
We just don't have a lawyer in the family. But now that I am at the place where I am today, having a legal background, having a lawyer in the family is probably the most important profession these days. But growing up again, accounting background, went to the Rochester Institute of Technology because they had a CPA track. Did 2 paid internships in the Manhattan office of Ernst & Whinney in the Trust and Estate Department. They ended up offering me a job, but by this time, my parents decided to move to San Francisco. So I moved out here, decided to stay with Ernst & Whinney in the real estate tax group. So stayed there for 5 years and then quit and started my own practice at the age of 28 years old and became the president of a small business association. So that's how I got involved in public service, is advocating for more contracting opportunities for women and minority small businesses at the federal, state, local, and even the private sectors. So that was the first time I had to go lobby local government, went to Sacramento, went to Washington, D.C., and started to understand, what politicians really do, right? They control the money. They control the budgets. They can pass laws. They can make appointments. All of the things that, impact a small business today. And so I started doing a lot of tax work for them and just trying to educate them like you're doing here at the chamber, because small business owners, they have an idea and they just want to, get to it and hire an employee, or 2, and then serve their clients. But in the meantime, you've got tax agencies and you've got other government agencies and you have to comply, and then it gets to be overwhelming. So, that's kind of how I started. And then, I decided that eventually, I wanted to run for office, but it took about 8 years because my parents, my dad, did not want me to leave being an accountant, being a CPA, right? And anyone can really run for office. You don't need any sort of degree or pedigree.
Sure.
So they didn't understand that, especially in their home country. You don't run for office there. So it was very foreign to them. So it took 8 years, and then finally, I ran for the San Francisco Board of Supervisors in 2002 in the Sunset District, which was the Asian or the Chinese seats.
Okay.
I did win. There were 8 of us in the race. I won in 2002, and I was the only Asian member out of 11, and only the second woman back then.
Really?
So San Francisco's the only city and county combined in the state. So we deal with, fire and the sheriffs and the police department and our hospitals. So everything is combined. But it was really difficult because, again, being the only minority and second woman, the men pretty much beat us up every day.
Really?
And then got an opportunity to run for the state assembly in 2006. And by this time, I was pretty strong.
Sure.
And I was the majority whip for 4 years.
Wow.
And then speaker pro tem, meaning deputy speaker number 2, my last 2 years. Then I ran for the State Board of Equalization, which is a tax board. And that's when I got to use all of my tax experience again, because not only small businesses have to pay sales taxes, but we also heard the appeals.
Right.
So a lot of small business owners came because they didn't understand, that they were supposed to adjust their computer, or they were still writing their receipts out in cash and getting audited.
Sure.
And then also the Franchise Tax Board appeals as well. So that was a very comfortable position for 4 years. Then state treasurer in 2018, and then reelected in 2022. So I've been on the ballot 20 times, haven't lost yet, knock on wood.
Right.
But public service is my calling, and hence, as long as the voters will continue to vote for me, I'm in.
You're not the average sort of political type of person. You've got a lot of energy. You've got a lot of, I don't know, it's contagious, let me say. So if I may touch on it for a moment, because we've heard this before, how do you feel? Is there a difference today as it was maybe when you first went into politics, with the way that there's a divide between men and women? I mean, you did have to take a lot of hard knocks, and now it is different. And now you see a lot of people going, oh, hello. But, how is it today compared to then? Is it better? Is it?
Yeah, so back then, there were not a lot of Asians that were running or getting elected to office.
Okay, all right.
And also women.
Women, right.
So when I got elected to the state assembly back in 2006, I think maybe a third were women. Today, we're pretty much half.
Right.
But it's taken a while.
Yeah.
And there's a number of reasons for that. Number one, the women don't control the pocketbook normally. The lobbyists in Sacramento, there's over 5,000 of them. Most of them are men.
Okay.
And the men just have a natural network of helping each other, right? Because they golf together, or they went to the
Sure.
same school together, or they go fishing, or whatever it is they do.
Right.
And the women don't have that because, of our background, we're usually home.
Right,
We're taking
right.
care of the kids.
Homemakers,
we're taking
yeah,
care of our,
yeah.
I live with my father.
Right.
And so we kind of have dual responsibilities. And so that's why it's really hard to break in. And even women who decide to run for office and get elected, having the family is also difficult, because the women still are the ones that are supposed to, drop everything and
Sure.
pick up the kids when
Yeah.
the kids are sick.
Yeah.
Or if something happens, the women is supposed to, drop everything. And so
Right.
when you're in the legislature, you're physically in Sacramento Monday through Thursday, and you
Right.
can't keep coming home.
No.
And when you're in Washington, D.C., it's even worse.
Yeah.
It's like Monday through Friday.
Right.
And so that's why it's harder, I think, for women to break in and kind of stay in and move up the ladder.
So then there's room there for men to be house husbands now, clearly.
Clearly, yes.
Clearly,
and I
clearly.
think after COVID and today, there are some men that like to work at home.
Yeah.
They like to be the caretaker. They like that flexibility, and they're good at it.
Yeah.
So why not?
Why not? Have at it. That's a good one. So as the current state treasurer, what accomplishments are you most proud of? I know you've done a lot, but what really sticks in your mind?
I think I've done a lot to reform my agency. We are the fifth largest economy. I oversee 500 people in my agency. I chair 17 different boards. And when I first got there, it was a little bit disconnected. People were working in silos, didn't know what each other were doing, hadn't even met each other, even though we're physically in the same building.
Right.
So I'm about the coalition. I like to hear from more people. I like the team concept. I played sports all my life, and so teams are kind of where I excel. And so I consider myself the captain, and we all, play important roles. But we all need to know what the play is, right? If someone falls down, someone needs to be there to back them up. If someone's feeling a little down, we gotta, do a little rah-rah.
Sure.
So I think the morale is pretty good in my office now. I have good deputies. And then secondly, because I'm a real estate tax accountant, I oversee the tax credits and the bonds for affordable housing. And this is for low income, very low and extremely low income individuals. So about 40 or 50% average median income. And because the rates have been good and the economy was pretty good, we've been able to build thousands of new units. so that are going to last, for many decades. So the affordable housing now in California is, really amazing. It's very dignified place to live, and we're just trying to help people get on their feet, stay employed, and obviously having, inexpensive rent, as we talked about, is very, is very helpful for families.
Now, you mentioned something there, just quickly jumping on it. You said you played sports. What were your favorite sports, or what were the ones you liked the most?
Junior high and high school, I played tennis, volleyball, basketball, and softball. And even though I started playing tennis at an early age and even played tennis in college, I really liked the team sports. So I liked basketball, softball, and volleyball probably the best. And
good for you. Yeah. Good for you. Now, just you did mention affordable housing, which has been a huge issue everywhere. And the word affordable is very loosely used, isn't it?
Yes.
So, as affordable, when you're talking about it, what do you utilize the word affordable? What's your meaning behind that?
Yeah. So affordable typically means about 50% average median income and below.
Okay.
When we talk about like 50 to 120%, it's more workforce housing, middle income housing. That's where we are really missing the mark, and we need more investors to come in and develop, because the first-time teachers and government workers and nurses, that's the type of housing that they need. Right. They don't qualify for, low, affordable income units, sure, but they need also, affordable market rate units. And so that's where California is really, that's where we desperately need the housing.
Now, we're being in California, we have lots of different areas. It's a very big state. Down here in Orange County, maybe the average salary is slightly different than maybe a crossover to Bakersfield or something like that. With you sort of like running the state, lots larger situation there. How do you sort of play around with that? Because, affordable, the average person here is $60,000, $70,000. Somebody else, it might be 40 to 50. Yeah. How does that play in line with that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so we changed our scoring system when I started.
Good for you.
To make to create kind of buckets that are geographical, as well as to a certain type of housing, right? There's family housing, there's veterans housing, multifamily, et cetera. So when you break it out and put them into buckets, then other jurisdictions around the state can actually apply and win. So it's not like Bakersfield is competing with San Francisco.
That makes sense.
So the Bay Area is competing against each other.
Right.
The rural communities, the North and the South and the East, have their own distribution allocation. So that's really helpful.
I like the way that you thought about that. That's definitely a plus for everybody. Now, just before we move on, because we do want to talk about your, your campaign and you're running for Lieutenant Governor, but just before we do, obviously, State Treasurer, you're leaving that position anyway in 2026. What happens when somebody takes over? Does it just like everything you did stops and then they decide to run it on, or is it a case of, oh no, you've got to keep this going? Well, how does it go about?
Yeah, it just depends. It depends on who your successor is and who your predecessor was.
Okay.
So assuming that I am supporting my successor, normally I just let them. I turn everything over to them. I don't make them start all over in terms of getting, all the names for our newsletter, for example. So I don't just shut it off like you hear at the White House, when different parties are like, oh, they shut it off. They start taking keys off of their, computers and stuff, right? Just to mess up,
the next person coming in, right?
Yeah, right. And I don't believe that that's healthy for government. No. So, I don't take anything personally, even if it's someone I don't support. If I've done a good job, I'm going to lay it out and put it all into, the transition binders for them. And it's up to them whether they want to continue what I'm doing or they can change everything. But I always believe if things are working, why change it, right?
Yeah.
And if something is working well, why don't you just slip in, check it out, and then you can make improvements from there. But to change everything, wholeheartedly, willy-nilly, just because you're starting really creates a lot of chaos and uncertainty and angst, not only with your employees, but the public that you're serving.
The rest of everybody else. That makes sense. Now, we were mentioning a moment ago, and it can't be easy. So running for a position that is part of the state, how do you deal with that? Because, I mean, if you're local, it's easy, isn't it? But when you're visiting everywhere, how does that plow into your everyday life right now?
Yeah, so when I first ran for the Board of Supervisors, it was 70,000 people. Then State Assembly was 450,000. Then Board of Equalization was 10 million. Wow. And now I represent all 40 million. So I've kind of done the steps to, understand, how different levels work, and also being able to expand, my base. So running statewide, it's not easy. My secret sauce is showing up, going and visiting companies and businesses, meeting with investors, trying to attract them, and having my ears and eyes on the ground is why I think I am successful. So when I'm talking to someone, or someone's asking me their opinion or what we should change, it's based on real people, and real conversations and real issues that are happening and challenges. So that's my secret. Other people will just raise or put in millions of dollars and then wait until the last minute and take out all these TV ads. It used to be easier, right? Because we only had, way back when, we had 3 channels.
Right.
And now we have like hundreds of cable channels, but you can still target.
Sure.
So if you wanted ESPN, you can just do ESPN or CNN or, others, but it does cost money.
Yeah.
And so that's why they always say, you want to run for office, you need money. You need to raise money, or you need to have money and write your own check.
Not very personable, that, though, is it?
It's not.
Doesn't give you much reassurance on whether the individual's the right person for the job, though, does it?
Well, yes. And therefore, the constituents, right, some people only pay attention when it's getting close to the election, and they don't really, read the newspaper or keep up. And so maybe, that tagline or the way that person looks or the name, may incentivize someone to vote for them. But, I think Californians are getting more sophisticated now. You can tell by the way they're voting on the ballot initiatives that they know what's going on, and they are actively engaged with their local elected officials and beyond. So with statewide, there's only 8 of us that run statewide. It's much, much harder to go down ballot. Usually the governor, everybody's focused on the governor and the president, and everyone else is like, we don't know who these people are. We don't know who the judge is.
Right.
And they may leave it blank, or they may be voting. I don't know how people vote, right?
Sure.
Lots of psyche.
So what made you think about, going for the lieutenant governor's position?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years, so clearly I could do something else, but there's nothing really else I really like to do.
Good.
I get up and I'm happy. I have a purpose. I help a lot of people. And now, based on my relationships, I know how to get things done. I know who to call. I can solve people's problems much faster and easier. So it's very satisfying.
And then, as you mentioned quite rightly before, talking about how a lot of people fly under the radar, we don't really hear much about a lieutenant governor. So what does that individual, or what does that role actually do for California? Yeah,
so lieutenant governor is like the vice president, right? They must be ready and willing and able to serve if the governor goes out of town, out of the country, or for some reason incapable of serving. So that's the number 1 job. Number 2, the lieutenant governor sits on 5 boards: UC Regents, CSU, community college boards, coastal commission, and state lands. So that's the 5 committees. They're just a voting member. They don't chair any committees. And then under the Constitution, the Lieutenant governor is supposed to be chair of the Economic Development Council, and then this governor delegated most of the international relations duties to the lieutenant governor, Eleni Kounalakis. She was an ambassador to Hungary, very, very familiar with international relations, comfortable, experienced, qualified, and so she does a lot of the trips. Both outbound and inbound, welcoming delegations. So hopefully I'll be doing that as well if I win.
Well, you're a very meticulous type of individual, and you probably to do the numbers, isn't it? But you definitely plan ahead. So you must already be thinking about it. What sort of things are you thinking of changing when you do become, let's say, when you do become lieutenant governor? What sort of things do you think you're going to change or adapt to?
Yeah, first off, I think the UCs used to be almost free. Right? Many, many years ago, UC was very affordable to anybody who came, to the state, even if you were a first-time college student. And now it's become a little bit more expensive. The CSUs were also very accessible, and the community colleges weren't really utilized as much as they are today because of the high cost of education. People don't want to go into high student loan debt anymore. And we've really tried to open up access to as much opportunities as we can. So UCs, I think, are doing pretty good in terms of reputation. We're still, tops in, the public schools, good sports teams, lots of alumni. They can do public-private partnerships, like, starting companies and, making money. The community colleges are free. They're free now for any first-time college goer. And people now are starting to specialize. The community colleges are starting to specialize, whether it's AI or cyber or autonomous vehicles, and then the students are moving around, but they don't have anywhere to live because traditionally these community colleges were commuter campuses. So we need to build more housing on community colleges because that's where people are now going because it is affordable and they're getting hands-on training.
Right.
And then the CSUs have kind of been like the middle child, right? They're not really a UC with that same cachet and reputation and, sports teams. They don't have alumni that want to come back and, build buildings and put their names on it. And they also don't get money from Prop 98.
Right.
Like the community colleges. So they're really on their own. They're struggling. They're trying to make, ends meet. And so that's why the state does help the UCs and community CSUs quite a bit in their budget when we are able to. So CSUs, I think there's more opportunities for partnerships to make them more like specialty schools. Like we don't have a school or a program that specializes in international relations, for example. Well, why can't we in Orange County, for example, you have a large Vietnamese population. They should maybe specialize in some of the, Vietnam or some of the Asian countries. Many of them could be, specializing in government work like Caltrans, right? We require workers, people to study, and hopefully we employ them. But if they don't know what the job entails and they don't have the background, they're only going to stay with the state for a little bit.
Sure.
So why couldn't we start them first year, train them in, transportation, land management, logistics, and then give them the internships, and then eventually we guarantee them a job, and hopefully they will stay with us for 20 years because we really need good people in government and not people who just come and we train them and then they leave because they don't make enough money. So, just trying to be a little bit more creative with our educational system because it is so, so important.
Sort of makes sense. There's a lot of talk right now with the local universities because obviously they're worried about losing funding and budget cuts and all that sort of things. And I don't want to get into all that because we could be here forever on that one. But so what types of things do you see in the future that could alleviate that? Is it a case of you're asking the federal government for more money? Is it figuring it out from robbing Peter to pay Paul? What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, that never really works, like kicking the can down the road, right? So how do you make it more sustainable?
Sure.
And the private sector as well they always need more workers. They need qualified workers. That's why people come to California, is because of our, infrastructure, our tech, expertise, our focus, our entrepreneurial spirit. They want to work hard. So that's what we should do more of, is working with our private sector companies. How do we attract certain companies here? Well, they need qualified workers. How do they find qualified workers? Let's start training
the training
them.
at the
Let's start
University
training
of College.
them. Exactly. Have them come on
right.
campus.
Yeah.
Have them start teaching the classes, so that when the internships come, it's already like, oh, I know Andrew. Andrew, he's a star. Come on in.
Right.
Come work for us for the summer.
Sure.
We'll pay you.
Right.
And then you establish those relationships and, the comfort, and that's how you kind of bring
So
people
a lot
in.
more collaboration between all the different entities will help build that
Yes.
infrastructure up. That's a different idea. I like it though. There's nothing wrong with that. With your background in finance, and I know you are very pro-business, how do you plan to support the sort of economic growth and the job creation and small businesses across California?
So California's general fund is highly dependent on three things: personal income tax, corporate income tax, and sales taxes. So if we do not have high quality jobs here in California, or companies that are offering stock options and bonuses, right? That's how we have been able to continue to have surpluses over the years, mostly due to the tech industry. So we have to keep those jobs here. Then when people have jobs, well, they're able to spend money in the community. Sales taxes are a big revenue generator for the local governments. And during COVID, because everyone was stuck here in the state, our sales taxes went through the roof across the state. Right. And then once everyone started traveling again, that's when, it started to decline. So the large businesses also generate a lot of revenues for the small businesses, like Hollywood, where when we have movies and people coming in to film, well, the restaurants are full, hotels, the caterers, the hairdressers, right, the makeup artists, they're all busy. But then when Hollywood is not happening, like right now, all of them are waiting, and they're kind of struggling, and they're not doing well. So kind of it has to have the whole ecosystem, not only the small businesses, but the big businesses. And we have to try to diversify.
Right.
I don't like putting all my eggs in one basket, for example.
Sure.
But these days, after COVID, there's a lot more home-based businesses.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, it was illegal to have a home-based business.
Yeah.
And now, because of the high cost of rent, and people do have a home, usually, that they are able to kind of generate, incomes that they can pay for their rent, et cetera, until they get big enough, and then they can go to, a brick and mortar, for example.
Sure.
So,
Well, in fact, some new developers, they're actually building on purpose an extra area for an office because of that very, very point there.
yes.
You made a really good point there about keeping people here in California. And we hear across the news, again, is it 100% correct? Is it really such a big deal? I don't know. But we do know that they've built themselves up in California, and now they're moving out. Here locally in Buono Park, Amway, Neutralite, they're going back out to where their headquarters are, so they're leaving this area. Rivian down in Irvine, they're moving out. How do we keep people here? Because they're always complaining about the taxes. Is it that bad? Is there something we can do to keep folks here instead of leaving?
Well, I think there's a lot of different factors, right? Some of it is taxes. When they make a certain amount of money and they have so many employees, they have to pay more taxes. And then they may compare and contrast and say, where are we going to grow? Number two, where is their employees? Where are they from? Where's the talent pool from? And a lot of companies do start here in California because of our educational system and our entrepreneurial spirit. But then after a while, they may tap out and they may say, we can get, we need to buy a big building.
Right.
There's not a lot of land here.
Right.
And it's difficult to build because of our, some of the restrictions.
Sure.
And so they may go someplace else so that they can build, a 1 million square foot warehouse, right? And then thirdly, how do they feel about California? it's normally the founders, right? They locate here because they love the weather.
Right.
They love the ecosystem. They, want their kids to grow up here, right? So the school systems have to be good.
Yeah.
The environment needs to be good. The quality of living has to be good. And then if their employees want to live here, then they're not going to move necessarily to Texas.
Right.
Right. So then they're going to have to think twice. Like maybe they will have another office someplace else, but knowing that, if our employees are top notch, they're not going to want to move.
Sure.
Then they're going to still have to have a presence here.
Right.
So it's a number of factors.
Yeah, that makes sense, though. It really does. The other part of what you'd mentioned before was to do with maybe needing more housing on campuses and things like that. And you just hit a very good point there about the different regulations and things we do with building codes and all that sort of thing. How do we get around that? Because that's not as easy. California could say, well, you need to start building more houses, and the cities are going to go, yeah, in time.
Well, we do have RENA numbers, and those are recommendations for every city and county to build a certain amount of housing to keep up with the demand.
Right.
And some are keeping up with those numbers and meeting those goals, and some are not. And when they're not, that's where the governor has gotten involved in terms of suing certain cities that did not want to build any new housing, for example.
Right.
So we do have kind of tools in our toolkit to incentivize those that are doing better and want to do more, and we do that. But there's always those that just don't want to comply.
Talking about that point, and I know maybe it's not in your realm, but it sort of will be. When you're pushing back on some of these cities, because laws are laws, aren't they? There are different ways that cities can then operate. They can change the way that they then operate as a city, which then really separates them possibly from the state, which really isn't a good thing either. How do we sort of maybe work together so that doesn't happen as much, or see that go across?
Well, I think every jurisdiction has a budget, right? And they have to meet their budget. It's like a family, right? So if a jurisdiction has only housing, they're not generating the sales taxes, right? And that's why certain jurisdictions have a lot of car dealerships, for example, because
big money.
They're making money.
Big sales tax,
If you don't have a hotel, you're not generating bed taxes, right? And with property taxes, if you have an aging population and they're under Prop 13, their property taxes are still very, very low.
Yeah.
So then how is that city going to pay for their police officers, their firefighters, right? Their government workers. And so that's why it's important that you diversify. But to diversify, you have to think about, where you want to go and where you want to be.
Right.
And if you want more workers to come, they have to live someplace.
Right.
And so saying no to housing means that you're going to not attract businesses.
Sure.
And eventually, that jurisdiction is going to have a hard time balancing their budget.
So we've talked a lot about private sort of partnerships and how to build that and drive and things. And we've talked quite a lot about housing and the increasing supply and the affordability of all that. With all this comes a lot of regulations. How do we sort of like maybe streamline or somewhat open up these regulations so it's easy or less difficult for all these things to go through and happen?
So it's not that easy an answer, right? Number one, who you elect as the governor is important because the governor is appointing people to run the different agencies. And depending on who that person is, have they come from the private sector? Do they do outreach to the community? Or are they like in their office making their own decisions? Then the regulations probably are going to be too strict. And then you see this, the community rising up and rebelling because they didn't know it was going to happen. They're setting mandates and all of a sudden they can't make it and meet them because it costs too much, right? So encouraging people to get more involved in government, like you represent your chamber.
Mm-hmm.
So your job is to look out for things that are happening in your community.
Mm-hmm.
They should be joining their chamber if they don't have time to actively engage. Then your job is to follow the legislation, right? Work with your assembly members and your senators to say, hey, these are some of the priorities. And if there's certain things that are coming, you also depend on them to give you feedback so that you can let the people know. Sometimes when things aren't able to be addressed at the state level through the legislature, then people put things on the ballot, initiatives.
Right.
And we have a very easy or open or flexible way for, people to put initiatives on the ballot to let the voters decide. But when it's on the ballot, it is not a compromise. It is one side putting something on the ballot that they hope the voters will vote for so they don't have to go through the legislative process. Because when you go through the legislative process, you elect these people to do their job. You have to go through at least 3 committees in each house. And every time you go through a committee, there's always going to be someone that said, we need a compromise, you need to tweak this, add this, delete this. So when it finally goes to the governor's desk, it's a better document. It's a better, well thought out, the law. When you put on the initiative, it's just one side because they couldn't get it to the governor or they don't want to compromise. And then once the voters vote for it, it supersedes what the legislature is doing.
Right.
So that's what I tell people because they want to know, well, why can't the legislature pass it? Why are we going, why are there so many initiatives on the ballot? And that's because people don't want to go through that compromise and that 9-month period to get the bill onto the governor's desk. They'd rather just, set aside, $2 million, get people to sign a petition, put it on the ballot and hope the voters vote for it. And they've cut down a lot of time. They don't have to compromise. And then if it passes, then that becomes law of the land.
That's serious, isn't it?
It is serious. So people should read the initiative.
All the way through.
Plus, there's no cost really in there. So you don't know when you vote for an initiative how much is going to cost. And when it supersedes the legislature, that usually also means that there's going to be money set aside from the budget that was going to something else, now has to go to fulfill the initiative because the voters voted for it. So,
in all honesty, what's the alternative if you see something on the ballot? And I mean, obviously, you're saying don't vote for it if you don't feel it. But I mean, how can you possibly maybe amend or change that?
Well, unfortunately, some other states are, they have different requirements.
Sure.
Like some states, if you want to run a statewide initiative, you have to, it has to go through some legislative process.
Right.
The attorney general has to go through it and make sure that, it's going to comply or at least not, upset the whole apple cart. Sometimes you have to wait a year before it can go on the ballot. Because, people get worked up.
Right.
There's a passionate issue that's happening.
Sure.
And they want some sort of change. They want it on the ballot. But then the next year, it's not a priority anymore.
Right.
Or, things have calmed down.
Sure.
So other states, I think, have a more stringent process of putting things on the ballot. But California is definitely the most liberal.
I know you, in your current role right now as the state treasurer, you have a lot of things out for businesses to help businesses grow. And we were talking about it earlier. I'd like to, let's talk about that for a little bit. You want to share a little bit about what everything's going on and what you've got to offer folks?
Yeah, so I've done this in the past in different capacities, and we all have newsletters that we're all, trying to get the word out about different programs. But during COVID especially, we received $28 billion from the federal government. And we rolled out most of them in grants. However, the public general public did not know about it until they saw it in the news. And by that time, it was gone. So we started putting together resource guides and updating them, preparing people that when we knew money was going to come for tenants or nonprofits or restaurant owners, we would start preparing them so that hopefully they were in the system, they knew how to sign up, and they were alerted when the application, was open and the competition started. So I started putting together these resource guides, and they have different categories, and they're updated in real time. But it's really a document that you can read about it and say, oh, I didn't know that there's a Go Green financing program. Oh, I definitely want to save energy. Oh, the state can help me with double pane windows or LED lights or solar panels. And then they'll call me or they'll go to this QR code or the website and then get more information. But that is, the incentive, my motivation for putting together this guide. And then I go on the road and try to,
share this information out abroad, right?
Exactly.
And then they can find that on your website, which is
www.treasurer.ca.gov.
Now, we met a couple of weeks ago again at one of your events down in Newport, and I quickly asked you why Lieutenant Governor, and you said, "Well, if I had more money, I'd run for the governor's job." So, but you did say something that was even more important. You said one of the things I want to do is really do a little bit more regarding business if I get that position. Would you like to just elaborate a little bit about what you were meaning by that?
Yeah. So right now, because I am the banker, $2 trillion plus goes into my account, and I fund and finance everything from affordable housing, schools, public transportation, green energy, advanced manufacturing, garbage and recycling, and small businesses. So I am kind of the self-appointed economic ambassador. I go to every county. I try to reach out and work with elected officials, city managers, residents, ask them what type of projects they've been working on and where they may need a little gap financing. And so that's when I can kind of match up people, right? And say, oh, you do this, they're looking for that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to connect you. Or you want to come and open up a manufacturing company. Where should you go? What do you need? Do you need to be close to a port? Do you need to be close to a train track or freeways? And then I can call, my friends there and say, hey, do you have any land? Do you have a warehouse? These people are interested, and then, they make the connection. So that's what I want to do more of. And if I have more time, I will be doing that, traveling more, listening and learning, and then trying to put more people together, because people want to come to California, but they don't know where to start.
Right.
So they typically start in the big cities, and that's the hardest place.
Right.
Right, because they've had history and
there's a lot going on there already, and you're the new person
people
on the
have
block.
been there and they're entrenched, right? And so I always recommend, hey, why don't you think about this city or that city, because they're very business friendly. They really want more this type of
that sort of
jobs.
work or jobs. Yeah, right.
Exactly. The quality of living is good. If you want to attract this type of worker, you should go maybe to this part of the state.
That's true. Just before we get towards the end, where we ask our guests open free mic to share whatever they'd like to share, I'd like to give you the opportunity, if people are out there listening and they're undecisive, how can they find out more about you, Fiona? Where can they go? What can they do to find out more about who's the right candidate?
Yeah. So obviously my website, FionaMa.com, is my campaign website. You can go to my treasurer website, treasurer.ca.gov, to see everything that I am doing on the treasurer side. But I post on social media every day, maybe 2 or 3 times a day. And you can go to X, Instagram, Facebook,
LinkedIn,
Blue Sky, threads right now.
Blue Sky. What's Blue Sky?
Blue Sky is a new one that
all right.
just came up.
Okay.
Yep. So,
right.
I got to kind of keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah,
the only thing I'm
100%.
not really good at is TikTok, but I'm trying, right?
We'll put you on TikTok. Don't worry about that. So like I mentioned, we always reach to this part of the area where we just ask the guest. It could be a final word. It might be something that we've missed, but it's up to you. It's your turn to do what you'd like to share. What you'd like to share.
Okay. So I did not grow up in an agriculture family. Grew up in Long Island and San Francisco, but now I am an agriculture enthusiast and advocate. I co-founded the San Francisco Farm Bureau last year. It's the 54th chapter of the California Farm Bureau. Even though everything started in San Francisco, somehow they never started a farm bureau. Why did I do it? Because I am concerned about food safety and independence. After COVID, where we were fighting for vaccines and PPE, and look what happened in Ukraine. Ukraine was one of the biggest agriculture producing regions, and after that, nothing is coming out.
Right.
So I want our consumers and our residents to understand where our food comes from and how difficult it is to connect better with farmers and ranchers, and to really support healthier living by eating healthier. And that will actually keep our healthcare costs low. Because right now, our healthcare system is strained. Many people cannot afford or don't have insurance, and they're going to the emergency room. And by that time, it's late in the process. They should be doing more preventative, eating healthier, right? Living better health styles, living healthier outcomes.
Sure.
Which is going to help our whole population.
Of course.
And then secondly, I love our fairgrounds. We have 78 fairgrounds, county fairgrounds in the state. Initially, they were set up for agriculture, the place for people to go and trade. And now they are still one of the cheapest and family-friendly places if you go to a fair. But we need to preserve those spaces for future generations. They're also being used as emergency response sites.
Right.
Because now, when we have a fire, they need to be able to come to some location
area,
and deploy from there. And so, preserving our fairgrounds to me is also a big priority for me. I do a lot of healthcare related, hepatitis B. I'm kind of the poster child for hepatitis B, directly linked to liver cancer, and trying to pass bills or ensure we are doing everything we can to prevent certain outcomes. We don't do enough of that. I think we are changing. Before, I tried to pass a bill to pay for 3 vaccines if you don't have hepatitis B. It's not that expensive, $25. Couldn't get it passed. Yet the state will pay if you need a liver transplant or have liver cancer, which by that time, it's so much more expensive.
Right.
So trying to change the priorities to preventative medicine versus, cause after something has happened, I think we need to do more of because of our healthcare crisis that is looming. So those are just a couple of things top of mind that I'm thinking about. But I got more. If we have more time, I'll come back.
I'm sure I'd love to. I'd love to have you come back as the Lieutenant Governor. So, as you mentioned before, it was your number 2 when you get the job, right? So, are you able to implement or help more on these topics that you really are very much aware of?
Yes. Because the duties are only really sitting on 5 committees, I've talked to many past lieutenant governors, and they love the job because they can, they tell me you can make it what you'd like of the job.
Okay.
You can be busy every day, or you can just sit around every day if you wanted.
You look like the busy type.
I am the busy type. I'm a type A personality. I like to go and see and meet people. So it's going to give me a little more flexibility to be able to do more of that economic development, that outreach, that, listening around the state.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so very much. And thank you for coming on today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
For those of you listening, thank you very much for tuning in and listening. And to hear other episodes, please visit nocchamber.com and select Listen to Chamber Talk at the front of the page. Until next time, stay inspired and keep making an impact.